You're listening to the Valley Labor Report with David Story and Jacob Morrison.
The last story that we're going to talk about, and we're going to kind of set the stage here before we go to break, and then we're gonna wrap with that on the other side, is the farm workers on the West Coast dealing with this insane heat wave that we've got, calling it a heat dome or something, and the effects of climate change are real and obvious, and we're feeling them now. It's not just something that we're going to have to deal with in the future. It's something that right now farm workers and other people are having to deal with today. And I mean, hundreds of deaths over the last week on the West Coast from like heat strokes and stuff. I mean, this is like people are dying in the United States from climate change right now. So roads are buckling, like power lines are melting. I mean, it's insane because the infrastructure up there, it goes to the importance of this infrastructure bill in Congress and the importance of passing it and the importance of not placating Republican obstinance and things like that in D.C. Because, I don't care about the filibuster. We need to make sure that people have jobs and that we have good roads and good power lines and broadband, and we need to take care of what they're calling human infrastructure. I don't care so much about how we classify it, but people should have childcare. People should have elder care so that they can go to work and make money if they need to and not have to spend their entire paycheck making sure that their parents or their children are taken care of. This is just, anyway, that's a tangent. Adam, you've been looking into this and what they're dealing with, and this the Supreme Court decision that happened that happened last week. So help me set the stage before we go to break.
So and we'll talk a little bit more about what the Supreme Court decision really said after the break. But I think it is interesting that you have this massive heat wave. And we're talking temperatures of 110 up to 120 degrees in the Pacific Northwest. I mean, that'd be pretty damn hot down here in Alabama, but, I mean, they are just not at all equipped to be able to do that, to handle that up there. And we have to remember that there are our brothers and sisters out here picking cherries, picking apples. They are in the fields dealing with these extreme temperatures. So we had a Supreme Court decision that was anti-union right in the middle of this climate change enhanced extreme heat wave. And on top of that, we've got a lack of proper regulations from state, local, and federal governments to protect those workers. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that case and what it all means on the other side of this break. Stay tuned to the Valley Labor Report.
You're listening to the Valley Labor Report with David Story and Jacob Morrison.
Labor creates all wealth. All wealth should go to labor. This is the Valley Labor Report. We are talking about the heat wave going through the West that farm workers and everybody up there is having to deal with. And there was a Supreme Court decision relating to their rights, to farm workers' rights in California that happened last week. Adam, tell us about that.
Yeah, so something to mention is that in California, they have their own set of labor regulations, like many states. Of course, Alabama has very little. We have in the same way that they have this law that the Supreme Court basically struck down, Alabama has right to work laws, right? There are different labor regimes in different states. Yeah, and the other thing that's also worth noting, we've discussed it with other guests before, is that farm workers are not included in the overall framework of federal labor law. So, for most people, you think 40 hours a week is a full-time job. Any more than that, you get overtime pay. All those kinds of rules and regulations have carved farm workers out. And some of that goes back to the New Deal. And when, the working class movement secured so many of these victories with the New Deal, unfortunately, farm workers and other domestic workers were often cut out of that.
Right.
And that's a legacy of white supremacy and the Dixiecrat hold on the South. And, there's a whole historical conversation there. But I wanted to point you to the Supreme Court decision because in a 6-3 ruling, we have yet another anti-union decision from the Supreme Court. And this one relates to the ability of union organizers to actually go visit workers on the farms. So prior to this decision under California law, if you were with the United Farm Workers, for example, you were permitted to make a certain amount of visits per year to talk with workers, not to interfere with their work, but to actually, meet with them during lunch breaks or before and after shifts.
Yeah, my understanding was that it was 3 hours a day, no more than 3 hours a day, no more than 120 days a year. And it could only be during non-working time.
Right. So this was not something that interfered with business. It was carefully crafted to not do that. Mm-hmm. But this was taken all the way to the courts so that these large farm owners could keep even that modest practice from happening.
Oh, well, really quick, I want to add, why is it that that's important? Why can't unions just, or why can't workers just talk to unions off the farm? Well, one of the reasons is that many of these workers, especially the ones that are immigrants, they literally live on the farm. Right. It is impossible to connect with these people off the farm. And even the ones that don't live on the farm live extremely close and are actually shuttled by farm shuttles from their houses to the farms. So it is, and they work extremely long days, right. And many of them don't speak English. And it's incredibly difficult to talk to these people if you can't go onto the farm during lunch breaks. And so California, the state government said, agree or disagree with it, right? This is supposed to be what states' rights people say is the benefit of federalism is we have a laboratory of democracy, 50 different regimes in the country that allow us to experiment with different things. And so California saw that there would be a benefit to allowing union organizers to step foot on the farm to talk to workers outside of work time. And this is something that states all across the country do with respect to allowing either state workers or private actors to go onto people's property because they perceive that as a benefit to society. Take, for example, health and safety regulations. They have health inspectors either from the state or sometimes through federal contractors. Actually, the restaurants are forced to allow these people to go into their property to inspect them. Okay, so people are allowed to go onto private property by states all the time. This is a totally normal thing, and California saw that there would be a benefit to society to allow this to happen. So that's why the law was in place.
And now all of that is under jeopardy. Not only are these union employees, the union organizers, not going to be able to visit these farms, the court ruled that basically by owning property, one of the most essential pieces to that is to keep people off your property. Now, never mind how important your property may be in terms of the economy, how it's supported by a vast array of state, local, federal subsidies, how infrastructure supports the profitability of that property, and on and on and on. These people like to pretend that their little fiefdoms exist in a vacuum separate from the rest of us. And the court ruling is so broad that, it's only a matter of time before you see some conservative business owners say that they don't have to allow health inspectors. It's only a matter of time before some moron restaurant owner decides to kick out the county health department, arguing that under this Supreme Court case, they have the right to exclude anyone they want from their property. And I think it's definitely a slap in the face to the farm workers because it makes it difficult for them to organize, and it makes it harder for the union to go see for themselves with their own eyes what is happening. Right. That's the other thing is that, so much of what happens with these farm workers kind of happens in the dark. Not physically in the dark because they're out in the damn heat and under the sun. Right. But, most people don't think about what goes into the food that we get. When you go to Walmart or Publix and buy produce, most of us don't really factor in the oppression that went into getting that product to the shelves.
Right.
And it's going to be that much harder for farm workers to organize in their unions now in light of this case, which I thought just the interesting timing of here we have this heat wave that is unprecedented. We have farm workers who are dying on the job while trying to pick cherries. You know, in Washington State, for example, UFW, United Farm Workers, has called on Governor Jay Inslee to pass some emergency standards to protect these workers from the just extreme heat. And, you know, from what I'm reading, it looks like there's a lot of folks up there in Washington more concerned about the cherry crop than the human beings who are picking these cherries. So it's just a slap in the face to see that the timing of it. There was a great piece by Alex Brown that you can find in these times about the efforts by some farm labor groups and some actual allied legislators in Colorado, Oregon, and Washington, I believe. Washington, Colorado, Oregon. There are some decent legislators there who have been working with farm workers and their organizers to try to get some changes in state regulations to protect them. Because, again, the federal labor law regime that protects most private industry workers does not apply to farm workers. They have their own separate set of regulations and rules. In California, they actually have a farm worker labor relations board. They don't even go through the normal, labor relations board as the private industry employees would. So, you know, as we go into this 4th of July weekend and we, enjoy our weather here in Alabama, we need to remember these sisters and brothers out there on the West Coast, all of whom are dealing with the extreme heat, but especially those workers who are out on the farms or who are out working outside, whatever their job may be. Because no one should have to die to put food on the table.
Right. Yeah, and there was one time we had Stephen Robbins, an immigration attorney, come to talk to us about this, and we had a caller say something about, well, if they make more money, won't I have to pay more money for my cherries or my bananas or whatever? And it's like, one, no, I don't think so. I don't think that your food is actually going to increase in price that much. But two, if you are not entitled to have cheap goods from like the essential slavery of other people, like if your cheap goods rely on people dying in the heat, you need to pay more for those goods. We need to set up institutions, and we need to have it such that our society does not allow that to happen. And if you have to pay more, then you have to pay more. I mean, that's just the way it is. I don't think you'll have to pay that much more. I think it'll just cut into the profits of the corporations. I think that's that is what has historically happened when things like this have happened. But that's right. What needs to happen.
There's plenty of huge profit margins that could be cut into so that these workers don't have to go out and die just to give you a cheap banana or a cheap cherry. That's ridiculous and asinine to even expect misery of others so that you can get some cheap fruit at Walmart.
Yeah, and this is going to be, I don't talk about politics a whole lot on this show, but this is going to be the lasting legacy of Trump. A lot of things that he did can be reversed, but his federal court appointees are going to issue anti-worker rulings for the rest of my life, and that is very detrimental to the country. Folks, we're going to be back next week.
Hey, you listen to conservative talk radio all week. Why don't you try something different for a change? The Majority Report with Sam Cedar is a 5-time award-winning daily left-wing political talk show. We go live every weekday at 11 a.m. Central Time on our YouTube channel. You can find it by searching for The Majority Report. We talk about the news, we take libertarian callers, we have debates, we interview guests on topics ranging from the post-Civil War Reconstruction era, child poverty, capitalism, the intellectual dark web, and more. And that's all just within the last month. If you want to hear what smart, progressive political talk that is occasionally amusing sounds like, then you need to tune in. And you're always welcome to call in if you want to hear the correct opinion on any given topic. I will give it to you. Tune into the Majority Report at 11 a.m. Central Time on YouTube or later wherever you get your podcasts.
If you want to see what we're up to throughout the week and get our snide quips about the news of the day, then you should follow us on social media. We are on Facebook at facebook.com/The Valley Labor Report. We are on Twitter at Labor Reporters. I'm on Twitter at JacobM_AL. And if you missed part of the show and want to go back and watch it later, you can search YouTube for The Valley Labor Report and subscribe to our channel. You can go back and watch the full show there, and we also clip segments and release them throughout the week. We also upload the program on more than 11 different podcasting apps. So to see if we are on your listening platform of choice, you can go to thevalleylaborreport.transistor.fm/subscribe. We've got a website where you can buy our hats and stickers. We've only got 20 hats left, so you're going to want to grab one of those before we're out. That's thevalleylaborreport.org. And finally, if you appreciate our work and want to help us stay on the air, consider throwing us a couple dollars a month on patreon.com/The Valley Labor Report.